Hello and welcome to Cryptic Change. Today we're going to be looking at the DeFi platform AcryptoS, which is basically a yield optimizer where you can earn some very nice percentages on single tokens. Now, first of all, AcryptoS is definitely not the right way to pronounce it, and actually it's supposed to be an acronym for Advanced Crypto Strategies, and there's a whole bunch of clever strategies in here which will optimize your yield and help you secure those luscious percentages that will earn you a lot of interest. And as per usual, I've spiced this video up with tons of tiny tips and tricks along the way, so hit that like and subscribe button and make sure to stick around all the way to the very end and I'll show you all the tricks of the trade. Now, as always, when dealing with DeFi stuff, there's always a whole bunch of risks, and I have to make an obligatory warning. There's a whole bunch of ways you can lose money when dealing with this stuff, and the most obvious one is, of course, that the platform can get hacked, or the team can do a rug pull, or you can lose money to impermanent loss, just to name a few. And I think the comparison to BlockFi is actually quite right, because similar to BlockFi, AcryptoS also promotes themselves as a long-term investment platform for earning interest on your crypto. And similar to BlockFi, they've also taken certain steps to discourage their users from making lots of withdrawals, as the whole idea is that you're supposed to keep your money in here for a long time, but more on that later. Now, what you will be needing for this tutorial is basically three things. You've got to have Metamask installed, and you should also have added the Binance Smart Chain and configured that correctly, and of course you also have to have some Binance tokens in your wallet, as they will be used to pay some fees. Now, if that all sounds like a bunch of weird words, then I do also have a separate tutorial which shows you how to do this in easy to follow steps. And with that all out of the way, let's take a look at AcryptoS. Now, once you enter the site, the first thing you're gonna see is this welcoming page. And I'm just gonna take a little time getting familiar with the platform, because here you have three choices and you also have a bunch of other info. And just like most other DeFi protocols, AcryptoS also have their own native token, which is of course the ACS token. And when you start to deposit other various cryptos into AcryptoS's vaults to earn some money, you will get paid interest in the actual crypto you have deposited, but also usually some extra ACS. And as you can see here, the ACS token is currently worth $40 or 0.1033 BNB. But since AcryptoS is, of course, advanced crypto strategies, one token wasn't enough for these guys. So they also have their ACSI token, which is native to their own Stableswap feature. But that is actually worth much less than the ACS. It's now currently only $6.48, which also means it might be a good investment, because as you can see over here, you see the market cap of both tokens. And $4 million, that's almost nothing. So if ACSI were to take off, then you stand a chance to make a hefty profit here. We can also see the supply of each token, which is roughly around 700,000 for both of them. And the interesting thing here is that they also have a really low max supply, which is 1.9 million for each of them. So everybody knows, of course, that there can only be 21 million Bitcoin, but here the sum is only 1.9 million, which means that owning just a few of these babies might also be something to brag about in the future. Of course, you can also see here the total volume locked, which is how much money is currently locked up in their vaults. And you can see my total volume locked, which is how much money I have in this platform right now. Now, other than that, we also have the ability to change daylight for the whole site. I always prefer dark mode, and you can select to translate the whole thing into a few different languages. And you have some more links here where you can read the detailed documentation about all the different setups, check out the fees, see what audits have been made for the code and what the conclusions have been, and keep in touch with the community on various platforms. But the most interesting thing is, of course, the vaults, and clicking that, we see a nice samurai ahead. I asked them what was the deal about this samurai, and the answer was just like, it seemed cool at the time, so I guess you can't argue with that. But when you come in here, you see a whole bunch of different earning strategies which you can enter. Starting off with the native ACS token, a bunch of different pairings, and moving on here in this column you see which protocol they're on. So this is on core, meaning the native AcryptoS protocol, and then they have a bunch of pools on the MDX protocol, and they have a lot of stuff on Venus, which I will be getting into shortly. You also, of course, see the API, or how much you will earn annually for each pool, and also how much you will earn daily. And of course, part of what makes AcryptoS so great is that a lot of these percentages are really really high. You'll be making much more than you would at BlockFi or any of the other more traditional interest platforms. And the way AcryptoS is able to achieve these high percentages is by investing your money and then using that as collateral to take up a loan and then reinvesting that again and doing this 3 times over, so that they're basically leveraging your interest and tripling the effect. All this can of course be done manually too, but that's the whole point of AcryptoS. They got all these smart contracts set up that does the work for you. Hence the name Advanced Crypto Strategies. But this also means that these percentages fluctuate all the time. So it's not the same steady income that you will know from BlockFi and similar platforms. And just as an example, here you can see the BTC is currently at 14.2%, but just a little while ago it was actually up at 50% and then it ran down to 3% and now it's up to 14 again, of course. And I both hope and truly believe that it will rise quite a bit once the bull run picks up again and huge rivers of money keeps flowing into the DeFi scene once again. But back to what all these columns mean, here you can see the total volume logged for each pool and how much you have personally deposited into each one. So there's a whole bunch of different pools you can invest in, and a lot of them pay really good percentages. But that's not what I want to show you today actually, because the reason I really like them is that they have all these single token pools, which pays really well and are a great alternative to BlockFi if you have a specific coin that you really believe in and don't want to dilute it by pairing it with some other coin that you don't have as much faith in. So as you can see, all these are single tokens, and if you look over here, you can see what tokens I am currently invested in. And what I want to do today is actually take a bunch of my Ethereum that I had over at BlockFi and move it over to AcryptoS, where I will be earning a much nicer percent interest. But contrary to BlockFi though, these DeFi pools will almost always pay a yield in 2 different coins. So over here you see the API or annual percent yield. You will get paid in the cake token, and right below it you see the APR, which is of course how much you'll be paid if you were not to compound the interest. You can also see how much you're earning every day. But below here, there's also the ACS API, which shows how you will be making an additional ACS on top of your cake token. And if you were to add these 2 percentages together, that's when you get this here 158%. But back to the task at hand, the first thing I had to do to be able to stake my Ethereum on this platform was of course to move it from BlockFi and over to Binance. So as most people know, moving funds from BlockFi will take a long time, so I already did that, and my Ethereum is now to be found over at the Fiat and Spot wallet. So here you can see my Ethereum, and we're gonna go over here. I'm gonna select withdraw. And since the AcryptoS platform runs on Binance Smart Chain, I of course have to transfer it to my Metamask wallet. So I first have to click my Metamask up here, and I have to make sure it's on the Binance Smart Chain. I'm gonna click the account here to copy the blockchain address. Then I paste that into the address field over here. And now comes the part where you have to be very thorough and make sure that this is on the Binance Smart Chain. You don't want to send it to the Ethereum network, you don't want to send it to the Binance chain, but you want to use this one. And this also shows part of the reason why I'm really a fan of AcryptoS in the first place, because it is on the Binance Smart Chain, where you will be paying very little fee. So here's the $0.19 compared to all the DeFi stuff over in Ethereum, where I would have been paying almost $10 for every single transaction. So that's just insane. So yeah, we want to use Binance Smart Chain. It's gonna ask you, are you sure you want to use the Binance Smart Chain? Yes, we are. And now, how much do you want to send? I want to send all my Ethereum over there. Now, if this is the very first time you're trying this, don't do this. Don't send all your money in the first transaction. Make a tiny one first. And the whole point again is that on the Binance Smart Chain, you can actually afford to make a tiny transaction because it costs just $0.1. But this is not my first rodeo, so I will actually be going crazy and sending all my Ethereum over there. But before I actually hit withdraw, I always like to double check the address. I'm going to look over here and I'm going to open my Metamask once again. I'm going to compare it. Yep, looks good. Okay, withdraw. And of course, there are some security hurdles we have to jump there. So first we're going to confirm it. Yes. And it's going to ask us, this is the amount you want to send to this address on this smart chain. Correct. Now you have to get a code by email. Click that and they send an email, and they also need your Google verification code, which is actually your 2FA, but in this situation would be my 3FA, I guess. So I'm gonna use my authenticator app and paste that in there, hit submit. The request is submitted, and now we wait. Now, making transactions on the Binance Smart Chain is usually very fast. However, whenever you send something out from Binance, it usually takes a little bit longer than when you're just using Metamask itself. But one little way to check if the transaction is gone through is actually to head back over to AcryptoS, and we're going to be paying attention to the Ethereum row where you see just 2 dashes, but here now it just changed. Now you see it says 6.9k, which means the transaction has gone through. Another thing to take notice of here is that the color of this money is green, and if you look at the other places I am invested, those are all blue, and the reason it is green is because I haven't actually deposited into the vault yet. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to hit deposit. It's going to ask me how much. I'm going to click max again. And also here you see this nice little tick box here where you can tell the platform that I not only want to deposit it to the pool, but I also want to stake it. If I were to unclick this, then I would have to deposit and then click stake. But of course, I want to stake it immediately. So I'm going to make sure that is checked. And one last thing before I hit deposit, I just want to draw your attention to what it says on here, withdrawal fee 0.1%, which is what I'll have to pay if I were to exit the pool again. So with this relatively small sum I am depositing here, 0.1% is not a lot of money, I guess, but still it is enough that I don't want to make a lot of withdrawals very often, as that will quickly ramp up to be a hefty sum. So this is kind of similar to how BlockFi has their special only one free withdrawal per month rule, which also keeps you from making a lot of withdrawals. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave this in for quite a while, so I'm just going to hit deposit. And as usual, we always get the pop-up from Metamask where you have to both authorize and then confirm the transactions. And since we also click the stake all funds checkbox, there's going to be a whole range of these pop-ups which we have to confirm over and over again. So just keep clicking these boxes and confirming the transaction. And now you see it just turned yellow. That means it entered into the pool. And now we have to confirm this yet again. And there, finally, it changed into blue. That means the funds are currently in the pool and they are staked and they will be earning interest immediately. Here you see my current balance, and here you just saw it popped up pending and a tiny amount of ACS. Now the reason this money says pending is because you actually have to harvest it. And harvesting this ACS actually costs a little bit of money, so you won't actually be able to do this harvest before you've earned a certain amount. And this brings me on to the last column of all these tokens, because if you see all the way to the right, you see these tiny yellow lines, which are in the form of corn, I guess, and they keep growing the more ACS you earn. So the ETH token I just entered only has a tiny line because I only have 0.000 ACS. But if you were to look down here on the LTC, you see the corn here has grown a little bit more, and here you see I have 0.18 ACS, and there's also a harvest button over here. So if you click that, it's going to ask you if you're sure if you want to harvest, but it's also going to tell you if you do that, it's going to cost 0.03 ACS, which is not that much, but still, since I only have 0.18 ACS, that's going to be like a sixth of my whole earnings for this. So I don't want to actually click this harvest button just yet. But if I check up here with my BTC or Bitcoin, then you can see the corn has grown much larger. And clicking this, you see I have 1.1 ACS waiting to be harvested, which is a nice little extra payment in addition to all the BTC I'm also earning here. So I'm going to click harvest here. It's going to ask again, are you sure this is the fee? Yes, I'm sure. Of course, there's the Metamask pop-up. Confirm that there too. It's going to take a few seconds again. And there you can see the corn was just cut down, the harvest button disappeared, and I now have a bunch of ACS in my Metamask wallet. And I can even check this. If I were to click my Metamask wallet, I can scroll down here and see, there's the little logo for the AcryptoS Samurai. And here you can see the 1.07 ACS I just harvested. Now I can of course always click this and swap this into any other token I like. So if for example I wanted some more BTC, I could easily swap it over to that and invest more of that. But I'm actually going to use it instead to invest in the AcryptoS platform. And to do that, I'm going to scroll all the way up again and I'm going to find the ACS token up here. And you can see now the color of my balance is now green. And that means I do actually have some ACS in my wallet that's not currently deposited. So I'm going to deposit that too. It's going to ask me again how much. Of course, all of it once again. But now you want to take notice here that it says withdrawal fee 10%. So that's quite a lot more than the 0.1%, which was the withdrawal fee for the Ethereum. 10% is a hefty sum. So do not withdraw this before you've earned enough to make it all worth your while. Now, as you can see, it will be making you 187% per year and 0.3% daily. So you don't have to leave it in for that long before you earn this 10%. But with the current interest, it would be somewhere around a month at least. And that's definitely something I want to do. So I'm going to click deposit here. It's going to give me the Metamask pop-up again. I'm going to confirm it. And again, you're going to see when it's actually entered, the color will change here again. And there it is. Now all my ACS is entered into this pool and I'm earning interest on all of it. So now I've shown you how to deposit into various pools. I also want to make you aware of these buttons up here where you can sort all these different pools by their protocol. So you can select core, which is all the native tokens for the platform, and the Venus platform, the Swipe, MDEX, etc. And then the most interesting one is actually these two swords, which will just give you a list of all the tokens you are currently invested in. So this is really useful when you want to check, hey, how is my investments going? How are the percentages, etc. And as you can see here, all the numbers are of course blue except the BNB, which is green. And that is of course because I am currently on the Binance Smart Chain, where the BNB is the utility token that you use to pay fees. So that I always have to make sure to have a little bit BNB in my wallet to pay for all the various transactions I want to make. And if you've been following this channel a little while now, you might have learned that I'm personally not actually such a big fan of native tokens for various interest platforms. I do not like Celsius Cell token, and I really hate the Crypto.com Crow token. And I must admit, I would actually prefer if also AcryptoS did not have this setup. But still, I cannot deny, of course, that I have actually invested this tiny amount in the token. And the reason for that is back to the market cap, which for this ACS token is 23 million. That's still almost nothing, guys. There's heaps of room for it to grow. And if we were to compare it to Celsius Cell token, then the market cap for that is actually 3 billion. So if that's anything to go by, that means it might actually be room for the AcryptoS ACS token to also grow somewhere around 100 times. And since this platform is still relatively new, you are still able to get into this whole scheme quite early. And even though I prefer platforms without these native tokens, I just consider it stupid not to invest in this at this point. But I have not actually bought any ACS though. I have only harvested the yields from all these other pools and kept depositing it into this pool, which has now grown to $175. I mean, it's not a lot, but I plan to keep on doing this for a year or maybe even longer. So this is basically dollar cost averaging into the ACS token. And this token does actually also have another function, because if we were to click at any of these other coins, you will also see down here it says ACS boost 1x. And if you click that, it also tells us how many ACS I would need to be able to get 2.5x. So the more ACS you own, the more you will also earn. And to get this for my current Bitcoin deposit, I would need 1,778 ACS. I currently own, 4.3 ACS. So that's not happening. But if we look down into one of the other tokens where I have much less deposited, like for example the DOT token, it also says here in ACS Boost that I currently have 1x. But if I click it, it says to get 2.5x of this ACS yield, I would need only 23 ACS, which I will probably be getting in not too long a time if I just keep harvesting and depositing into this ACS pool. But that's not all, guys. Another reason why AcryptoS is really great is if we go back to see all the different pools again and we scroll down a little bit, we get down here where we see all the various stable coins. They have the VI, they have the BUSD, the Tether, the DAI, and the USDC. And all of these pays a hefty percent. And just like all these other percentages just took a nosedive with the market, these percentages were also cut in half just a few weeks ago. But I feel pretty confident saying that they will most probably rise up again, so that if you do have a lot of fiat money lying around that's only losing value to inflation, you should definitely consider converting it to one of these stable coins and depositing it here to earn some real nice interest. And if that is something you want to get into, then that is where AcryptoS's Stableswap comes into play. So this is a separate feature where you can swap tokens around from BUSD to USDT and all sorts of other stable coins that they support. And you will also be making some extra ACSI along the way. And supposedly this is also really cheap compared to other platforms, although I must admit I haven't actually played around with this myself, so I can't vouch for that. But that's not all though, because if we look back at the vaults here, then you see there's also tons of other pools you can enter if you want to take even more risk. And if we go all the way up again and sort by API, we see the best one is MDX BUSD, which will pay a real nice 1400%. And I personally have a lot of faith in this MDX token, and the BUSD is of course a stablecoin, so I consider this a pretty safe bet actually, where you will be earning a lot of percent both on the MDX and the ACS, and the risk is relatively small. And one last thing I want to talk about in this video is safety. How secure is this platform? If we click back over at the Samurai head, we can always check out the audits and see what faults or mistake they have found in all their different security checks. And they generally come out of it very well. There's a minor information hiccups, which some of these audits points out. But all in all, it's looking very well. And the platform also has a very good reputation in the crypto community. And case in point, there was a little incident a while back with the Venus protocol where other DeFi platforms that utilized this actually lost a lot of money. But AcryptoS did not lose anything because of the way they have set up their contracts. You can read much more about all this in their Medium page. And it's kind of funny actually, because when you read all their posts, you can tell they have a lot of pride in their work. So this kind of reminds me about how, hip hoppers will be bragging about having the nicest rhyme or best cars or whatever. These are some badass nerds who's bragging about their code, and I love it. But like always, there's always a huge risk when you're placing your money in other people's hands, and that risk is also multiplied many times when you're placing it in a totally anonymous platform like this, where there's next to no information about who runs it, compared to a multinational corporation like BlockFi. So there is definitely lots of money to be made here, but do you want to take that risk? That's up to you. And that's all I have for you today, my cryptic friends. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe button and stick with me as I will continue to produce more content like this.